Hi everyone, Andy Miller here from Calvary Church in Claremorris, and I'm glad you can join us on this lovely sunny day as we look at another aspect of the Easter story. I wonder if you ever put your foot on it. Have you ever just spoken your mind and ended up looking a wee bit stupid? Well, Jesus' disciples had a real habit of doing that. And one example of that was Peter here in Matthew chapter 16. Because Jesus began to explain to his disciples how he had to go up to Jerusalem, how he had to suffer and how he had to die. And Peter just didn't get it. It says from that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, chief priests and teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said. "This shall never happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men." Peter just didn't understand it, why Jesus would go to Jerusalem knowing that he would suffer and that he would die. And yet that's exactly what Jesus said had to happen. And then again over in Matthew chapter 20 and verse 17, it says, "Now Jesus was going up to Jerusalem. He took the 12 disciples aside and said to them, 'We're going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death, and will turn him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified. On the third day he will be raised to life.'" Jesus knew that his time had come. He knew that now it was time for him to go to Jerusalem. And when he went there, he was going to tell the people who he really was. He was going to reveal to them that he was the Son of God. And he knew that when he did that, that they really wouldn't like it. He knew that the religious leaders wouldn't believe him, and that they would persecute him, that they would hand him over to the Romans to be beaten, to be put to death, to be crucified. And he knew that on the third day he would be raised to life again. But you might say, well, why would he go, knowing that that's what would happen? Well, right after Jesus said this, Matthew records a really interesting story. Another time when the disciples put their foot in it, because James and John started to think that they were really good disciples. They started to think that they were the best disciples. And their mother was egging them along. And she went to Jesus and said, "You see, whenever we get to heaven, can my sons have the best seats in heaven? Can one of them be on your right hand and one of them on your left?" And Jesus said, "No, you really don't know what you're talking about." And in Matthew 20:25, Jesus called them together and said, "You know the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be the first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." I'm sure they didn't have that in mind when they thought they were the best. Jesus said, if you want to be the best, then you need to be the servant of all. And he said that that's why he had come. Not to be served, but to serve. And to give his life to pay the ransom for many. Now, what was the ransom that he had to pay? Well, that's the debt that we owe to God for the sin in our life. All of us have sinned against God. By nature, we rebel against him. We go our own way. And when we do that, we rebel against his very character. And we reject him and all that he has done for us. And the only one that could pay that debt that we owe to God for our rejection of him is Jesus Christ, his Son. And that's why he came. He came to pay the ransom, to pay the price, the debt that we owe to God for our sin. And that's what he did on the cross. So he went there willingly. It wasn't the Romans or the Jews that put him on the cross. He went there willingly by himself. And he paid the price for our sin. But I wonder if you ever thanked him for going to the cross. Have you ever asked him to pay the price for your sin? Have you ever accepted the sacrifice that he made for yourself? If you haven't, then there's no better time than today to thank him for what he's done for you. And to accept him into your life. To say sorry for your sin. To say thank you for dying for you. And to go his way. I trust that this Easter time, and I pray that this Easter time, you'll find Jesus Christ as your own personal Saviour. Thanks for listening. Join us again next week as we look again at another aspect of the Easter story.